A good Sunday afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our special Hurricane HQ coverage here on Fox Weather. I'm Ian Oliver, and right now, we just got that brand new advisory on Tropical Storm Imelda that developed earlier this afternoon. The National Hurricane Center just putting out its new update. Yes, it took a little bit longer to develop this tropical storm in Imelda. That had some implications on the overall forecast, and the big story today noted in this new update as well, that major shift off to the right or to the east with the forecast track. This had been suggested. We talked about it over the past few days here on Fox Weather by some of the AI models. That's a path away from the coastline. And although thankfully we aren't expecting a direct landfall, some significant impacts are still likely. We're talking about the possibility of flooding rain, gusty winds, and some coastal impacts from Florida up through the Carolinas. The NHC warns that rain totals could reach up to 7 inches across coastal areas in the Carolinas. Both North and South Carolina are currently under a state of emergency. We've got full team coverage on the ground tonight. Our crews will keep you informed and prepared as we continue to track out this system. And there you go, up and down the coastline of the southeast, our team with some of that live coverage. Let's talk about what just came out, this new update from the National Hurricane Center. And to do that, let's bring in Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist Bryan Norcross. Bryan, following this throughout the day, you had noted that burst of some new convection thunderstorms, some banding features. National Hurricane Center noting that, but they did discontinue the tropical storm watches there on the east coast of Florida.
Yeah, they discontinued the watch because the track is actually bending away from the coast, even as the system goes north, where yesterday it looked like it was going to be farther left, closer to the coast. And so no tropical storm watch, but there still are going to be gusty winds in bands that come over the east coast all the way from the Miami area on north along the coast, at least until about Monday. All right, here's the new advisory. 40-mile-an-hour winds is still the estimate. There is no research plane that's left Lakeland, Florida on the way out there, so we'll get an update on that in another couple hours. Moving north at 9, and no change in the pressure because we don't have any new aircraft measurements. And the north at 9 is an increase in forward speed. It's finally kind of getting on its horse and going to get going now and move north through the Bahamas and get on track. It was forecast to move slowly through this period, but it's actually moved even more slowly than those original forecasts, and that has been part of this change in where it's going. But we do see, look at the development of this curved band here. It looks very prominent, and that's an indication that it is in a strengthening phase. If it could organize, the thing is, you can also see, if you draw a line here, that this is all dry air over here that's drying out the kind of bottom half of the system. So that's going to slow the organization. But with this curved band, I think if they had to estimate right now using their techniques how strong the storm is, they would estimate more than 40 miles per hour. But they're going to wait for the aircraft and get the exact measurement as they often do, which is not a bad thing. Why not use the real data, right? So here we can see this circulation coming like this. Here are these bands like this, and here's one up here, and some of those outer bands kind of move over the coast. Now that the sun is beginning to go down, you're going to get less heating over the land, so fewer of these bands will bubble up into significant storms, but still we could have some along the coast. One other thing you notice here is notice how far north the moisture goes. It goes way, way up north. And watch here as we look at the radar farther north, you can see the moisture is streaming all the way up here. There's a big dip in the jet stream here. It goes way down and then comes back up. And so that's pulling the moisture north. That's also what's driving the dry air into the base of the system and slowing down its progress and intensifying. So it's kind of doing both, and I'll show you more on that in just one second. Take a look at the new cone just out from the Hurricane Center, and you can see that the distance here from the coast is a little greater. They're actually using essentially the Google AI track here, very, very similar, which has been a little farther from the coast. You see, the idea is that by tomorrow morning, it's intensified a little bit more by tomorrow afternoon as it's moving through the northwest Bahamas. The strongest winds are not necessarily near the center, but with that band wrapping up, we may get close in fairly strong winds. So just be aware in the northwest Bahamas. Certainly the Bahamas can handle this kind of thing, but boaters beware especially, and people in vulnerable areas. Then we get close to hurricane strength on Tuesday when it's offshore of Cape Canaveral, beginning to turn to the right, and then a hurricane moving in the direction of Bermuda, being there about Thursday. But the other hurricane we're going to talk about in a second is due there in that vicinity Tuesday and Wednesday. So kind of a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday situation there for Bermuda. All right, let's talk about Humberto. They brought the winds down to 145. Now we can see that notice that little dot right in there. Let me put an arrow on it right there. See that? That's a sign of some dry air, that a moat developing between two parts of the storm, maybe a developing outer eye, and that's generally a sign that there is some weakening. I didn't see that earlier on, but that's a good pickup from the Hurricane Center. 145 and the pressure 937. Here's the cone, very, very similar to what it was before, kind of circling around Bermuda. Tropical storm force winds Tuesday into Wednesday in Bermuda, according to the latest forecast. All right, so here are our two systems. There's our Category 4 hurricane out there, and here is Tropical Storm Imelda. They're far enough apart now that there's really no joint effect, but notice they get closer here. This is tomorrow. You look in the upper left for the time. Also notice that the moisture with the storm is pushing north, but other moisture has already streamed north. Remember I said the moisture is pushing way out ahead of the storm. So already tomorrow we're going to get moisture over the southeast, and generally this is associated with the rain. So this isn't tropical downpours so much as just plain old everyday rain. Then it eases north and starts to turn to the right on Tuesday. The model, the European model, is a little bit slower in doing that, but they all have the same idea, and it's heading on out to sea and then going to follow Humberto out there. In the meantime, lots of moisture over the southeast, and it's dark green now, so expecting kind of steady rain. That's why the Hurricane Center is saying watch for the possibility of flooding. It's not crazy amounts of rain, not crazy amounts of tropical rain, but just watch that. Same thing in Florida, where we can get some bands that are very, very intense. It looks like the most of the rain of land area will be in the Bahamas as it moves on by. Okay, so here's where we are in terms of the overall pattern. Right now, this dip here is pulling Imelda to the north. It's also kind of capturing Imelda. You see the yellow there? So that's the driving feature right now. And of course, here's our Hurricane Humberto out here. Watch as we go north. Watch as we go north. This is pulling it north. See, it's still in that one's orbit. And we're going to watch for this one and see if they join orbits, which the hint, they go. Yes, they do join. And this dip in the jet stream actually kind of joins this, and this is going to pull everything on out to sea. So kind of a handoff between the one over the U.S. and then this big one dipping down. And it's got to do with the fact that Imelda moved so slowly moving north. All right, checking out the models. There you see high confidence from the GFS and the European and the Google AI model that this system is going north and going to hang a hard right near Cape Canaveral. If you notice, Ian, the Google AI model is a little farther offshore, so they're leaning a little bit that way. And there you can see, this is when it gets picked up by Humberto, and that dip in the jet stream just zips on out of the picture. So on balance, this is all good, but we don't want anybody not to be aware of the rain and the potential gusty winds and so forth that go with that along the Florida coast. Ian?
Yeah, Brian, I think the DeepMind, Google's AI model, probably earned that, at least with this one, and how well it's had this one over the last several days. Very interesting, but that margin, the gradient of heavy rain being just offshore versus onshore, we're still going to need to watch that so closely over the next couple days. That's Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist Bryan Norcross. Thank you.